if it comes off, and it's not going to be easy, and it will have to be limited to a few sites. By the way, I don't think that the travel will allow this to be a regular season. It'll be entirely different.
And so, Dr. Farber, what are we learning so far from other states that have had lower infection rates, lower incidences of COVID-19 cases that maybe we can take from and learn from as this country sort of reopens in different stages?
Well, I think we actually learn more in some respects from other countries than we do for different states, because the states have been all over the place, and a lot of what's happened in states, to me, so far is it's too early to say that they're really going to be spared or whether they've been literally lucky to date based on their population density and other things, because certainly the jury is still out on all those issues. But in the countries like South Korea and Indonesia and Singapore that have done a pretty good job, what you notice is that they've done pretty much what we've done, only they've ramped up testing enormously. They've done a lot of contact tracing. They've changed the work habits of people. They've did ongoing social distancing. And most importantly, they're seeing mini outbreaks and mini reintroductions that they have to clamp down on immediately and isolate those people. And unfortunately, it's a lot harder in a big, heterogeneous country like ours, particularly in a dense city like New York.
You're going to have to be quick, 20 seconds, but offices and things like New York and commuting, that's going to be really difficult to work out.
Yeah, staggered hours. People probably will change the way they work. They'll come in a morning shift in the office and, stay later. There's going to be a lot of changes. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, we will look forward to keeping in touch with you. Thank you so much. This was really, really worthwhile for us and for our listeners. Bruce Farber, he is the Chief of Infectious Diseases at Northwell Health, joining us on the phone from
Sounds like a little bit of a playbook.
Totally.
Oh, so cool.
All right. For the World and National Playbook, let's go to Bob Moon. He's got that. Hey, Bob.
Jason, thank you. As many leaders in many countries lead their people back toward what passes for normalcy, new COVID-19 hotspots are popping back up. And months into the pandemic, President Trump continues to spread, if not misinformation, then at least misunderstanding of what experts are warning. Here's Bloomberg's Martin DeCaro on the risks that Trump's public statements are ignoring.
Dr. Tom Inglesby at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health is advising Maryland Governor Larry Hogan on the state's evolving plan to reopen. On Fox News Sunday, he refuted President Trump's remarks from 2 days prior that the virus may simply go away without a vaccine.
This virus isn't going to go away. Hopefully, over time, we'll learn to live with it and we'll be able to reduce the risk of transmission. But it's going to stay as a background problem in the country and around the world until we have a vaccine.
President Trump is returning to views he expressed in January and February when he repeatedly downplayed or dismissed the emerging threat. In Washington, Martin DeCaro, Bloomberg Radio.
The Supreme Court is running things remotely as the coronavirus pandemic continues with another teleconference. Today, Justice Neil Gorsuch asking some questions.
Counsel, I have 4 questions. I'm going to tick them off as fast as I can, and you can choose which ones you want to respond to in the time you have. First, can you explain to me why the fact that the land is in fee simple?
Hard to figure why people haven't found much compelling today in a case involving state and federal jurisdiction over Native American lands. Global News 24 hours a day. I'm Bob Moon.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
If knowledge... Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £63 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 21st of May to play in the June draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16+. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
For more than 20 years, Asda supported our communities. We've raised over £23 million for Fair Share and the Trussell Trust. And recently, we've donated supplies to frontline NHS workers and carers. We've always been proud to serve those around us. Visit asda.com/creating change for better. Asda, we're all in this together.
While most of us are looking out for each other at this time, sadly, fraudsters are trying to take advantage of the situation. Here's Chris Ainsley from Santander with advice for keeping your money safe.
If you're buying anything online, take care and don't pay by money transfer. Always pay by card. Take time to check the seller is genuine, and if you're unsure, then stop and don't send any money.
For more advice on keeping your money safe, visit santander.co.uk.
The NHL is always on the ice with these awesome hockey podcasts on TuneIn. Get your goal with the Spittin' Chicklets podcast.
Brian Yandel, Keith Yandel, thanks for coming on. What's going on?
Nothing much. Glad to be here. You guys got some nice digs here.
We heard you took Southwest 2-stop flight to get out here.
Yeah, well, just...
Carve up the ice with NHL at the rink.
The other day I wrote a story. Artemi Panarin, Semyon Varlamov, Sergei Bobrovsky, they all helped arrange for the purchase of N95 masks to benefit hospitals in their respective markets. This is another one of those positive stories you're seeing.
Or create your own power play with Locked On NHL.
All these teams invested future assets to take a run at the Stanley Cup right now. Like, all of those teams would have a real serious gripe, like trading these multiple first-round picks to make a run at a cup. You're right.
Discover these and more NHL podcasts right here on TuneIn.
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. She's faced furious protests to Michigan's coronavirus restrictions.
I didn't ask to be thrown into the national spotlight. I'm just trying to do my job, and I'm never going to apologize for that because lives are at stake here.
Governor Whitmer talks with Susan Glasser on the New Yorker Radio Hour from WNYC Studios. Listen to this episode on TuneIn today.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying to
standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your seventh inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, oh, well, Jeter Downs. Didn't realize he was a top. Like, my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course. Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting Nine podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for favorite baseball player. Active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of like active
Round the Bases with the Statcast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike, just to go over the first couple of picks, Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one, not only.
Catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. New numbers to pass along from California on the number of virus cases. It says the number has climbed 1.9% to 67,939. The number of California virus deaths now up by 0.9%. Stocks are higher as New York announces some parts of the state are ready to reopen May 15th, easing concern over the impacts of a prolonged lockdown on the economy. The S&P 500 index is up 8 points, up by 0.3%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average remains lower by 28 points, down 0.1%, while NASDAQ now showing a gain of 100 points, up by 1.1%. The NASDAQ 100 index is up by 1.1%. 10-year down 11/30 seconds with a yield of 0.71%. Gold is down 0.4%, $16.95 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude down 1.4%, $24.40 a barrel. Recapping, S&P up 9, a gain of 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly, Carol Masser here with you, and I've got to save ourselves from going down a major rabbit hole here because Joel Weber and I are instant messaging right now talking about the Big Lebowski, and I could spend the rest of the show talking about that. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a terrific story that Devin Leonard wrote. He is Projects and Investigations reporter, one of our favorites for Bloomberg Business Week. Joining us on the phone from New York, as is the aforementioned editor of the magazine, Joel Weber. He's on the phone from Brooklyn. So this aggression will not stand, Joel, but I turn it over to you to help us understand what's going on in the world of small business.
Boy, talk about a moment in time that a group of businesses have just been really sideswiped. And this is obviously something that Bloomberg has been covering closely from the moment the pandemic really started to escalate, because if there's really a backbone of this country's economy in the U.S., it looks like small business. Roughly 1 out of every 2 jobs in the country probably are small business related. And so they've really been bearing the brunt of it. And as we've sort of seen this story evolve, we put Devin into the mix to sort of step back and really kind of help us make sense of things like PPP. And as he kind of dug into it, it just was like such a rich narrative, and also one that, like, look, this is a story that this is the opening chapters of it. We're looking at something here that's going to last for weeks, months, years. Devin, you talked to so many small business people for this story? What kind of takeaways and lessons did you have?
Well, just really quickly, just for the record. My editor, who did a great job in the story, he cut out my Big Lebowski joke. I said that the SBA abides. Anyway, I just, since you guys brought it up.
Wow.
But what I found out was that, I mean, this was a really well-intentioned thing that Congress did as part of the CARES Act, the Paycheck Protection Program, but it was rushed out. It was intended, it was sort of framed as something that would really help small businesses, but really it's much more designed to do what it says: protect people's paychecks, keep people on the payroll of these small businesses. But a lot of these small businesses are struggling. They've been ordered to shut, and for the proprietors, they have to decide: well, do I just pay all my workers to do nothing, or do I somehow hope that I can use the money later when we're opening up in an uncertain economy? So it's a lot of money, more than $600 billion, but is it going to have the impact that Congress, I think, that we all hoped? I don't know. I don't think it's really clear at all.
Well, Devin, so what, through your reporting and talking to small business, and you have a, really great read and story, reality of Sarah McNally, who runs, well-known bookstores, certainly here in the New York City area. And I just do wonder, is it the program itself, the size of the program, the access to small business loans? What have you found out that's, what's breaking down here?
Well, Congress, sort of as often happens, Congress passes a law and allocates, the amount of money to be spent on it, but how it's actually going to be implemented, that's left up to the agency that's actually going to be running the program, or in this case, the Small Business Administration and the U.S. Department of Treasury. And they, together, they wrote these rules kind of after the fact that kind of lock in small business owners to this 75%, you have to spend 75% on payroll or you don't get a loan forgiven. And the whole thing was sort of presented kind of as a grant program to begin with. So, you have that, of course, Carol, on top of, well, people had hard times getting loans because rather than put the money through the Small Business Administration, which has had a tough time handing out sort of loans directly before in, situations like Katrina and even, more recently in Hurricane Sandy, they basically had the SBA guarantee loans, and then the banks would hand them out. And, as we all know now, and as Bloomberg has, reported extensively on,
right,
and done a fantastic job on, JP Morgan, big banks like that, they favored their existing clients first because, again, the rules were unclear and they didn't want to take a chance, or they were, they didn't want to rush to take a chance on a bunch of, first-time borrowers whose credit histories that they were completely unfamiliar with.
So actually, Devin, that leads to sort of like a chapter in the story that you did, which is ultimately about, small business owners who are, almost turned away from the big institutions. And one of the places that they've turned to are sort of smaller or community banks. And at first that wasn't really an option, but then there's been sort of cast of characters that happens to show up in your story. Tell me about those people and sort of how there's been sort of a sort of middleman aspect to how these loans have gone down.
Well, at least in this case, so you start with Sarah McNally. She owns 4 bookstores. She'd had 2 bookstores up until about 6 months ago, and then she opened 2 more, double the size of her company. Then the COVID-19 crisis hits, and she has to decide what to do. I started talking to her before she even went to, tried to get a PPP loan, but because like a lot of these small business owners, they operate in really slim margins. What they don't want is more debt, but she decided she kind of had to go for it because bookstores are non-essential businesses, so she had to pretty much close down. She's operating an online business, but that doesn't. She can't employ 115 employees on that revenue. So she goes to Bank of America. It becomes pretty clear that after about a week or so that that the only thing that's possible is maybe getting loans for 2 of her stores, and she actually has 2 stationary stores, so it's 6 in all. So she kind of panics, calls all these people, winds up talking to her optometrist of all people, and he's in a similar situation. He's tried to apply online at JP Morgan Chase. He's been turned down, but he has this connection through his optometric association to a loan brokerage out of Long Island, and these guys basically deal with all these non-banks, and they wind up connecting Sarah with a non-bank. It's called Fountainhead in Florida, and the bank approves her, but doesn't get a chance to actually submit the loan to the SBA for a guarantee. And that's right when the money runs out. So I just think people were just running around like crazy because if you didn't have a relationship with a really big bank, well, where did you go?
Right.
And so that you had a mess right there with that. Luckily, she was able to find somebody, but then she gets a loan, and now she's kind of like
right.
She doesn't know quite know what to do with it. But anyway.
Well, and there's a great question that's brought up in your story, and I highly recommend that everybody go read it because there's so much information in there, but about whether or not PPP is really kind of thought about, is really as pro-worker as they are saying it is, and that's something I don't think has really gotten a lot of attention, so rightfully so. You're giving it, Devin. So check out the story. It's going to be in the magazine, on newsstands, online, and on the Bloomberg. Devin Leonard wrote it. He is Bloomberg Business Week investigations reporter, and also joining us, of course, was Joel Weber, Bloomberg Business Week editor, on the phone from Brooklyn.
All right. For those of you listening in New York, D.C., and San Francisco, watching on YouTube, Bloomberg Business Week continues right here. We're going to talk about economics. We're going to have the CEO of Ronstadt later. Tune in. If you're listening on 106.1 in Boston, Bay State Business, that's coming up next. This is Bloomberg.
That saying, success breeds success?
Did somebody say just me? Get delivery like a G. See, hungry dogs gotta eat. I get mines every day, every week. Chicken wings to the crib, I'm sitting in. Burger in the low. Hope they put the pickle in. Wonton on a catamaran. Oodles and noodles, thank you, my man. Justeat. Somebody say just eat.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £63 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 21st of May to play in the June draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes 16+. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
For more than 20 years, Asda supported our communities. We've raised over £23 million for Fair Share and the Trussell Trust. And recently, we've donated supplies to frontline NHS workers and carers. We've always been proud to serve those around us. Visit asda.com/creating change for better. Asda, we're all in this together.
.com on the Bloomberg Business app and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We move into the final hour of trading on this Monday. Stocks are trading mixed. The Dow is lower. S&P, NASDAQ, they're both higher. Stocks are advancing as New York announces some part of the state are ready to reopen May 15th, easing concern over the impacts of a prolonged lockdown on the economy. S&P 500 index erasing losses amid a rally in technology shares, while the NASDAQ 100 index advanced for a sixth day. The NASDAQ 100 index up 1.2%. By comparison, NASDAQ is up 1.2%, higher by 108 points now. The S&P up 10, up by 0.4%. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average now lower by 20 points, a drop there of 0.1%. At the worst level of the day, the Dow Jones Industrial Average had been down 261 points. As for market sentiment, Lori Calvasina is head of U.S. equity strategy at RBC Capital Markets.
A lot of the investors I've been speaking with over the past few weeks have really been questioning the rally, asking, why are markets going up so strongly with all the bad news that we've got on the economic front? But I'll tell you, also coming out in that conversation is big concern about a second wave of infections that just doesn't seem to be priced into the market.
AMC Entertainment Holdings shares surging after reports suggest Amazon was, quote, thought to have held talks about a potential takeover. Shares now surging by about 30%, talking about AMC Entertainment. As for Amazon, it is up by 1.6%. Shares did pair gains when another outlet, the trade publication Deadline, said the companies are not talking. Avianca Holdings, one of the biggest carriers in Latin America, has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy after travel bans across the region forced the Colombian airline to ground its fleet. Among some of the U.S. carriers today, we do have shares of the airlines for the most part lower. UAL is down 5.6%, American down 2.3%, Delta down 2.6%, Southwest down 3.4%. 10-year yield 0.72%, gold down 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week here on a Monday afternoon. Feel like we're getting into our rhythm here. Carol, you've sort of taken care of your case of the Mondays. It's good.
I have. I know. A little bit of
I think you just need to talk about Big Lebowski a little bit.
I know,
I think that's what
you guys needed to talk about it.
We did. If you could see the IB chat that Joel and I did, we really geeked out there for a second.
I was watching.
No, I was telling the people who couldn't watch. I knew you were watching because I could feel you rolling your eyes. But interesting first hour in the sense that a really, not provocative necessarily, but very insightful conversation with the head of infectious diseases there at Northwell Health. This is a local system that we rely a lot on here in the New York area.
A massive local system.
Massive. And there was something that was shared in the notes that they've had 10,000 people with COVID-19 released from their hospital at this point. So that's a big deal. Check that out on our podcast later because I think you'll get a good sense of what's going on.
Well, and I think it was very realistic in terms of what the reopening looks like. And he just reminds us that there's several things that have to fall into place, especially for a city like New York, to reopen. And I think we need to remember that as everybody feels like there's a bit of a rush. And what happens in New York, like he says, you can't really look to other states in terms of how they're reopening. You really need to look to other countries.
That's right.
And where they are in this process.
I thought that was a really interesting point.
Yeah, I think that's the reference point. And, we see this playing out in the markets, and that includes certainly some of the economic data points and the bond market. So let's talk a little bit of Business Week economics. Kathleen Hayes is with us, Global Economics and Policy Editor at Bloomberg News, on the phone from the Poconos. Carl Riccadonna also with us. Oh, no, Yelena Shaletyeva. Excuse me. Senior U.S. economist, Bloomberg Economics, on the phone with us from Long Island. So, Kathleen, let's start with you because I do wonder what the bond market is telling us about the outlook. And I feel like the bond market to some extent is saying, folks, this is going to take a while, so relax and be patient.
Well, actually, when I look at what the bond market's saying, it seems to me there's a number of things it's saying today because we see a bit of a sell-off. That 30-year bond is down 1.5 points, yields up to 1.44, low by historical standards, nevertheless. But, stocks have bounced back, and there does seem to be in the stock market this look down the road, more optimistic view. The reopenings are going to gradually, maybe clunkily unfold, and we're going to head, toward this potential to have stronger growth. So I really think that's what they're saying. Interesting that the 3-year note auction, this is the first day of the three legs of the quarterly refunding, record $96 billion being sold, $42 billion of 3-year notes. People snapped them up. The demand was higher. The price was, higher and the yield lower than people expected. 3-year notes are always popular with banks, but I think it's interesting. There's no problem with that tenor of maturity, being sold. Other thing I'd like to say is we got a lot of inflation numbers this week. U.S. is CPI tomorrow. We're going to have, in hours from now, China CPI, Japan CPI, Japan's later in the week, India CPI, as there's this debate about, is it inflation or deflation that's coming? Most people say deflation, but Morgan Stanley, I don't know if you guys saw it, they've got a report out today saying they think that in a while what we're going to see is somewhat higher inflation, even though they note that most investors don't see that.
All right, so you see optimism, it sounds like, in the bond market.
Well, just this concern that for the bond market, if you're a bull, it's concerned that things are going to go well and the economy's going to open up and grow. But see what Yelena has to say. You're absolutely right.
The stats are there to support it. Yelena, come on in on this conversation. I mean, does it make sense that maybe yields are starting to tick higher?
Good afternoon. So I think that we'll see ups and downs in the markets. We will not see like a straight line upwards in the data in the markets. It will be a bumpy road in our view. So as far as economic data, this week we will continue to see bad news coming. So following the payrolls report last Friday, we will probably see further deterioration in the labor market, and for the May employment report, we expect an additional 7 million layoffs and the unemployment rate to spike to 20%, for example. But this week we'll get retail sales, we'll get industrial production, some industrial surveys. These are the data that will actually be the source data for the second quarter GDP, which everybody expects to be a dismal quarter. So prior to this week's data, everybody's expectations, everybody's forecasts were based on modeled expectations. Now we're going to start getting key source inputs into what it will look like. So I think in terms of the economic data, that things will continue to be quite dismal. So it will be very interesting to see how the markets react to this. Will they just say, okay, this is like the past data, or whether they will just look forward and hope for the best in terms of states reopening and such.
Well, the other reaction we're going to be looking for is to Chair Powell, I believe, on Wednesday. Kathleen, what are we expecting, and what's sort of the vibe around this?
Well, I think everybody is expecting. I actually don't know but I think I know what I'm expecting. I think after how he spoke so sympathetic to what's going on with the virus, it's going to determine so much what happens in the economy and how the Fed responds. At the same time, saying he still sees the scope for a rebound in the second half of the year. I think he'll repeat that. I don't see what would have changed his mind at this point. Now, we also know that there's been a lot of chatter in the markets, in the Fed funds futures market and around it in particular, about negative rates in the U.S. because the Fed Fund Futures contract is starting to price in a move to negative rates by spring of next year. Well, will he comment on that? Will he be asked about that? Surely he will. And we had Charlie Evans, Chicago Fed, Raphael Bostic, Atlanta Fed, both saying no, they're not fans of interest rates, a negative rate, key rate by the Fed, and they're also definitely not worried about inflation at this point. They're definitely still thinking that the bigger force is downward price pressures, and of course, we do get that CPI tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm just curious how the markets, investors on the equity side will fare with when they see kind of some of those shocking retail sales numbers and some of those other economic data points. We know they're going to be bad, but still, when we see them in black and white, it's always troubling, I feel like, or often troubling for investors. All right, Yelena Shaletova, our senior U.S. economist at Bloomberg Economics, on the phone from Long Island, along with Kathleen Hayes, global economics and policy editor at Bloomberg, on the phone from the Poconos. Let's get back to world and national news headlines. Back on over to Bob Moon. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Carol. The Open for Business sign will be going up in stages as New York Governor Andrew Cuomo takes the first tentative steps starting this Friday. He outlined a detailed plan today to slowly reopen by region. And as of now, areas in upstate New York, in less dense areas, will be eligible to reopen. The plan includes localities to reach 7 metrics for an extended period of time that shows that COVID-19 is slowing in their areas. Cuomo says the numbers look promising statewide, but stresses that reopening can't be hasty.
We see all the arrows are pointed in the right direction. If you look at the number of new COVID cases per day, about 488, that is just about where we started this horrific situation.
As for New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio says the lockdown will continue into June. Signs that Republicans will negotiate another economic spending bill with Democrats are yet to emerge. Bloomberg's Eric Chapman reports from Washington.
Right now, Republicans are more intent on reopening the economy, Congressman Trey Hollingsworth said in a Bloomberg interview.
The program was just designed to be a short-term bridge to opening up the economy again, to enable firms to get back to hiring, get back to doing business as normal. If we are not able to get the economy open safely, if we're not able to hold down the level of infections and transmissions once we open up the economy, there isn't enough money in Washington to save businesses in the long term.
Hollingsworth said Republicans worry about future financing of surging deficits, while mulling what additional spending measures would have the most impact. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
When you follow the facts,
Bloomberg's been reporting on this intelligence community report.
when you seek out the experts,
The investment banks that Bloomberg speak to also want some relief.
no matter what else is happening,
It's been pretty hard to read the signals.
at least you know what's real.
The economic fallout from the virus risks becoming entrenched.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, weekdays at 1 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Right now, Doctors Without Borders medical teams are operating in some of the most remote and dangerous corners of the world. When front yards become front lines, at the crossroads of conflict and epidemic, where there are no hospitals, that's where we operate. Your response is critical to our response in places where few others will go. That's where we operate. Learn more at doctorswithoutborders.org.
The market's info.
Sick of this. We're gonna do this doggy style.
Did somebody say just eat?
Me, get delivery like a G. See, hungry dogs gotta eat. I get mines every day, every week. Chicken wings to the crib, I'm sitting in. Burger in the low. Hope they put the pickle in. Wonton on a catamaran. Oodles and noodles, thank you, my man. Tacos to the chateau. Please, did somebody say just eat? Private jetting in the night sky. My man hand glide by with my fried rice. Right? What could you not love? Bought a slice on the side of the hot tub. Ooh, what you gon' do, boo? Chocolate fondue right on cue. Even dipping in the sea. I see food, seafood sees me. JUSTEAT.
Somebody say just eat.
Switch on Acorn TV, the brand new streaming service featuring world-class TV from Britain and beyond. Watch exclusive premieres like the colourful crime drama Queens of Mystery.
Once you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
And fan favourites like Inspector George Gently.
I'm just an old copper doing his job.
If you love drama with a little mystery thrown in, enjoy 30 days free with code ACORN30. Then just $4.99 a month. No adverts, no contract, cancel anytime. Join online today at acorn.tv.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
The garden tools that mean you can grow your own. The fire pit that turns tea time into an alfresco dining experience. The paddling pool that turns your back garden into a water park. With a choice of ways to pay, you can make the most of family time. You can say yes when it matters most at very.co.uk. Goods and Services provided by Shop Direct Home Shopping Limited. Credit provided. Subject to status by Shop Direct Finance Company Limited. 18 plus.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £63 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 21st of May to play in the June draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
We're all having to get used to the new normal, and at Birkbeck University, we're experts at being adaptable. As London's evening university, we've been flexing around the lives of busy commuters for nearly 200 years. And you can find everything you need to secure your place for autumn online. From expert advice to virtual tours, a live chat with our students and course applications. Make the new normal, studying for the career that you really want. Search Birkbeck, and it's new problem solved.
TSB believe in people helping people. That's why they've created TSB Smart Agent, a new secure way for TSB to answer your personal and business banking questions online. Find out more at tsb.co.uk. Automated service available 24/7. TSB partners available 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Quite a turnaround for the Dow. U.S. stocks are trading mixed. The S&P NASDAQ higher. The Dow is lower. Let's get all the details as we head over to the first word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Here he is, Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon. That's right, U.S. stocks with a bid after opening lower. Dow is down 3 points, was down 261. S&Ps are up 12, and NASDAQ really outperforming, up 1.3%. The U.S. 10 yield at 0.72%. WTI crude futures are down 1%, and transports fall 47 points. Leaders to the upside in the Dow, Pfizer, Apple, and Merck, while American Express and Boeing led to the downside. After earnings, Under Armour sank 10%. And in other news, Fed's Evans sees U.S. unemployment around 9% by the end of the year. The EU seeks to revive trade talks with the U.S. And the Southwest Air CEO said we are beginning to see a recovery. Wrapping things up, some of the names pointing after the bell tonight include Green Dot, MBIA, and Tilray. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Charlie?
Okay, I thank you very much, Bill. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg type squawk, SQUAWK on your terminal. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie Pellet, you are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Let's continue our economics discussion, but take it in a slightly different direction with one of our faves, Andy Brown, back with us, editorial director for Bloomberg New Economy, and his column, a provocative headline, as it often has. Trump is trying to open Pandora's box. Andy Jones is on the phone from New Hampshire. All right, what's going on here, AB?
Yeah, so look, the central idea here is that, at the very heart of this global pandemic is a mystery. And that mystery, quite simply, is where did this virus come from? So we know that the outbreak was in Wuhan, in China, and scientists are pretty sure that it jumped from bats to humans via another kind of via animals. But there are huge gaps in our understanding. We don't know what kind of animal. We don't know, was it a farm animal, a pig, for instance? Was it a wild animal, a pangolin? How did it spread so quickly? Could things have been done to halt it before it spread widely in Wuhan and then to the rest of the world? And so, in the absence of answers to this, and all we have is basically information coming out of China, and much of the world doesn't believe what's coming out of China. We know that there were cover-ups. The Chinese media has reported that, the Chinese authorities may have way lowballed the numbers of infections and deaths in Wuhan. And in the absence of that, you've had all of these conspiracy theories taking root, particularly in the American political right. And one of these theories is sort of what I call the Pandora's box theory, which is that, it came out of a lab in Wuhan, a high security lab where they're studying viruses. It was an accident. And just as, Pandora's sort of, reckless curiosity led her to open the box, and out of course, in Greek mythology, out comes all the evils of mankind, sickness and death and poverty and toil and all the rest of it. And that was exactly the what happened in Wuhan, that China unleashed all of these terrible evils on mankind. So, that theory is widely believed now in the White House, particularly, Secretary of State Pompeo, and he said earlier, there's enormous evidence for this happening. In fact, there is very little. In fact, there's no evidence at all that he's been able to produce to substantiate this conspiracy theory. So, I mean, it just seems like we need a global inquiry, right?
Well, I have to say, too, and Andy, one of the things that I found most telling was some of the interviews over the weekend with scientists who said if you look at the virus and you look at the genetic makeup of it, you understand that this was not something that was, made in a lab. And so that there's just an overwhelmingly amount of scientific evidence that says, okay, where this came from. But put that aside, in the meantime, you just have these increased tensions and problems, once again, coming from both the U.S. and Chinese sides. And you do wonder what this means going forward for what's already a fraught relationship, right? And not a great one. And you do wonder what this means. You open up Pandora's box, and how much worse does it get? And then what are the repercussions in terms of us coming back from this virus on a health basis as well as an economic basis?
Right. I mean, we need, for sure. We need answers to this. Where did this virus come from? Lessons need to be learned. I mean, we need to be better prepared for the next one. We're living in an age of pandemics. We need to know, what should have been done that wasn't done. There are all sorts of, answers that scientists, that government officials, that, citizens, we all need answers to these really basic questions. And yet it appears that China is adamantly against anything that looks like an international inquiry. In fact, the Australian Foreign Minister, Marissa Payne, when she suggested it a week or so ago, the Chinese ambassador to Canberra, sort of in a rather veiled way, threatened trade sanctions against Australia, said, that the Chinese people may not buy Australian beef and wine and so on. So it's politically almost impossible for China to agree to this, because, of course, any independent inquiry is likely to start uncovering all kinds of embarrassing details, about this cover-up that's been widely reported in Wuhan. And in the absence of that, what you have is U.S.-China relations now just plunging to the lowest point that they've been since the establishment of diplomatic relations.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, when you think about how hot this has gotten and how fast, and it harkens back to all the back and forth over the trade war, which seems almost quaint at this point, because we're really talking about a lot of people's lives at this point, not just their livelihoods. All right. Andy Brown, editorial director for Bloomberg New Economy. His column, it's a must-read on the Terminal and on Bloomberg.com. Trump is trying to open Pandora's box. Carol?
Yeah, I mean, this is a difficult relationship, was, as you said, going into it, and it just seems to get trickier and trickier. And we need transparency from China, right? And we've talked about that for ages, I feel like. All right, you are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar along with Jason Kelly. Coming up, we've got Dave Wilson and his chart of the day. Stick around, everyone.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are mostly higher, but only the NASDAQ is showing a significant gain. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 9, the S&P 500 up 11, the NASDAQ Composite is up 111. AutoNation says the recovery in auto sales is underway. The nation's largest car dealership chain is reporting stronger than expected first quarter earnings. and it says sales were up in late April. It says Americans are looking to travel and social distance. At Marriott, a much bleaker picture. Its first quarter earnings fell far short of expectations as business cratered in April. Marriott is closing properties, furloughing workers, and looking to raise cash to ride out the pandemic. Areas near meatpacking plants are showing a sharp rise in COVID-19 cases. Data from Johns Hopkins show increases of twice the national average in counties with major meat plants in the week after President Trump ordered the plants to reopen. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
If knowledge is power, the Bloomberg Terminal is your power up, connecting you to real-time financial data, market-moving news, powerful analytics, and an influential network of financial decision makers around the world. Share ideas, negotiate trades, and gain the insight you need to make more informed decisions. See how the Terminal can take your workflow to the next level at Bloomberg.com/professional.
Are you interested in
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £63 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 21st of May to play in the June draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16+. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
For more than 20 years, Asda supported our communities. We've raised over £23 million for Fair Share and the Trussell Trust. And recently, we've donated supplies to frontline NHS workers and carers. We've always been proud to serve those around us. Visit asda.com/creating change for better. Asda, we're all in this together.
TSB believe in people helping people. That's why they've created TSB Smart Agent, a new secure way for TSB to answer your personal and business banking questions online. Find out more at tsb.co.uk. Automated service available 24/7. TSB partners available 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday.
Typical Danny. Last night I was chilling with my girls, but ended up spilling my Chardonnay all over my fave lilac nightie when I saw the photo I was tagged in. State of my fake tan. But no worries. Just one wash and my clothes will smell perf with Surf. Surf gives you long-lasting fragrance with natural essential oils. Find your fragrance in Surf's laundry range.
Let's tune in sports on this day. On this day in 1972, the Giants trade baseball legend Willie Mays to the Mets for pitcher Charlie Williams and $50,000.
And Willie Mays started off, of course, with the Giants in New York. And right now, let's go back to a lead-in for the President of the United States' message to Willie Mays.
Hey, Willie Mays. What a thrill it is for me to take part in this.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
While he was gone, Al had some kind of vote to make him the managing. You remember he used to come up all the time in the Raiders game that he was the managing general partner. By the way, don't forget, there was a lot going on in Munich. You know how tired that man was to come back and find out that Al Davis had strong-armed his team from him while he was gone?
Search The Right Time with Bomani Jones to listen.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL Draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead-up to the 2020 season. Like the Ringer NFL Show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
There are some delays because of the COVID-19.
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more. To help make the most of your time at home, TuneIn is sharing our top activities for social distancing. Tip number 4, relax. Don't feel like you have to be productive during these stressful days? This is the perfect time to focus on yourself. Whether that means meditating, taking a bath, sleeping in, or doing nothing at all, take a deep breath and treat yourself. For more indoor inspiration, search Listen from Home on TuneIn.
Live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
All right, coming up, we're going to have Dave Wilson's chart of the day. Then we're going to drive you to the close. Why are you looking confused?
No, I'm just listening.
You're not? Oh. You're like, I was like, are we not doing chart of the day? What's happening? What's happening right now? I always look forward to the chart of the day and Dave's song of the day. Of course, all that is straight ahead. First, back to Charlie Pellet. He's never confused.
Oh, yes, I am. Here's what's going on. We have got 28 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. Got that right. Let's get the numbers right. We've got the Dow down 59 points right now. That is a drop of 0.3%. Your S&P 500 index higher by 5, up by 0.2%. And NASDAQ surging 91 points, higher by 1%. The NASDAQ 100 index also up now by 1%. By the way, at the worst level of the day, we had the Dow down 261 points. That was a drop of 1.1%. Again, now lower by 55, down 0.2%. 10-year down 10-30 seconds with a yield of 0.71%. Gold is down 0.3%. $16.97 the ounce, holding below 1,700. West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.4%. $24.63 a barrel. One of the tools for containing the coronavirus has been the launch of so-called contact tracing. Dr. Joshua Sharfstein is Vice Dean of the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. And on Bloomberg Television this morning, he explained how it works.
And so what you do is you find someone who has the coronavirus. Maybe they had a test and they're positive. You call them right away. You find out who they've been in contact with during their infectious period, which is a couple days before they started symptoms. And then quick, you call them, you tell them that they may have been exposed and that they should quarantine themselves.
The Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies. The U.S. will be getting less than half of Gilead Sciences' worldwide donation of 1.5 million vials of its COVID-19 medicine over the next 6 weeks, which is not expected to be enough to treat all the patients who would qualify for it. Gilead shares are up today by 3.8%. Investors are continuing to pour cash into gold exchange-traded funds, with 2020 inflows already exceeding any full year on record. Even as stocks post their biggest earnings season rally in 6 years, State Street's Spider Gold Share ETF, ticker GLD, saw its best month of inflows since 2009 in April. GLD lower today, along with the price of gold down 0.5%. Again, we've got stocks trading mixed. West Texas Intermediate down 0.4%. The S&P up 6, up 0.2. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week.
Great. I love it. I love it. Dave Wilson.
Nice.
Yeah, it's perfect for this Monday. I'm not sure I know who it is, though.
It's Little Richard, isn't it?
Is it Little Richard?
Died over the weekend.
Oh, but of course.
Oh, right, of course. That's right.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah, you were going off the lyrics. I was going off of the fact that it was Little Richard.
The fact that
Oh, absolutely.
That's why it comes together.
It does.
Kind of hard to miss that sound.
You know what's funny? My husband and I were talking about it over the weekend. I mean, I feel like we've always talked about Little Richard. He was still kind of young, considering it feels like he's been around for such a long, long time.
87. I mean, he lived quite a life.
Yeah.
But he was starting out in the early 50s, even before, he became well known. So, right. I mean, you're talking about
he's been around for
5-6 decade career in music.
That's what's remarkable.
Maybe longer.
I'm just impressed that 87 seems young at this point, Carol. That's
I just
good
think,
for you.
I'm kind kind of optimistic about these kinds of things.
I will say, Dave, to that point of, him going back that far, there was a great photo that made the rounds on Twitter of him with the Beatles, who I think opened for him. Is that possible?
That is possible.
Isn't that great?
In England in the early 60s, absolutely.
Yeah, the Beatles opened for him.
Yeah.
I mean, it was before the Beatles were the Beatles, of course.
They were just, a little ragtag band from England. So, Dave Wilson, talk to us about how this fits into the chart.
You look at where dividends are headed for the S&P 500, and you could say they're slipping and sliding. Let's put it that way. And this all came out of a blog post I saw last week from S&P Dow Jones, which, of course, they maintain the S&P 500. It's a guy named Tim Edwards, who's a managing director over there, who took a look at the historical payouts on, the companies in the S&P 500, and then looked at something that actually highlighted in a chart a few weeks ago called dividend futures. So, in other words, calculating what payouts might be annually all the way out to 2030, which you can do because there are these futures contracts that go out that far. And so if you run the numbers, you find out that the futures, at least as of last week, had built into them a 23% drop in total dividend payments over the next 2 years for the S&P 500, so 2020 and 2021, from a peak last year of $484 billion total. And, it's going to take quite a while if you buy what the futures are selling, in essence, for companies to get back to that total and beyond. You won't see that happen based on the futures contracts until 2027. Now, that's a whole lot of pessimism. And in fact, it raises the question of whether, the futures traders are going a little too far. But what was interesting, there was a report out Friday from Barclays that basically concluded, and I'm quoting here, the pessimism in dividend futures is justified. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Nonetheless, I mean, you have seen a whole lot of companies in the S&P 500 cutting dividends already. And what the futures are signaling is there's going to be more of that. And it won't just be this year. It may well be next year, too. If you want to know more, folks, send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
You know what's interesting, Dave, is, right, Jason, I felt like we were having a lot of conversations before the virus really took hold, certainly of our world and certainly of the financial markets. And a lot of guests were saying, go for stocks that pay dividends.
Yeah, totally.
Right? But that world has been upended as a result of the virus.
Yeah, tons of talk about that. Did I hear you right, Dave? You said it won't return to a certain level till 2027?
Yeah, you won't get back to the payout from last year, that $484 billion figure, until 2027, based on calculations done with the values of these futures contracts.
Calculations can change, though. Come on, right?
Back.
Right?
But
yes,
okay, but what if he had said 2025? That's still a long ways out.
I think it's hard for anybody to have any kind of visibility.
All right. Well, you just called somebody who was 87 young, so I'm not sure your perspective is totally.
Really?
I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. All right, Dave Wilson, thank you so much. We will see you a little later on. In fact, about 20 minutes from now, after the close, a little less than that.
All right, so maybe my perspective's off a little bit.
He's a young strapping 87.
He's been around forever.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Right?
Well, I think he has. I mean, if he started in the 50s and had the Beatles open for him. All right, let's get to Bob Moon now. He's got world and national headlines. Hey, Bob.
Jason, the White House is ordering President Trump's staff to wear masks inside the building, except when at their desks. This after 2 staff members tested positive for coronavirus infection last week. Fears of coronavirus infection spikes have been borne out over the past few days in several different fresh hotspots. There's been a renewed surge in Wuhan, the Chinese city where the virus started, and in South Korea, a single nightclub customer has been linked to 85 new cases. A top world health official warned today that countries are essentially driving blind in reopening their economies without setting up strong testing and contact tracing to beat back flare-ups. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said today he's trying to be smart with plans to reopen parts of the state in carefully assessed stages starting this Friday.
This can be a science. It can be measured. right? And that's what we want to do. We want to demystify this entire issue.
House Democratic leaders are looking to introduce the next major spending bill to promote economic recovery. Bloomberg's Herb Chapman reports.
Best to evaluate how the economy responds in those states that allow businesses to reopen, Republican Congressman Patrick McHenry said in a Bloomberg interview, in which he agreed that states and localities will need more federal help.
You'll have some level of state aid be a part of the next package. We want to be effective to ensure that states don't have to declare bankruptcy, but we're not pressed right now. I think we have 2 to 3 months before that becomes a pressing issue.
McHenry added that state needs will also depend on whether students are able to return to state universities. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
And I'm Bob Moon.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing, LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
The best of Bloomberg Business.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
For more than 20 years, Asda supported our communities. We've raised over £23 million for Fair Share and the Trussell Trust. And recently, we've donated supplies to frontline NHS workers and carers. We've always been proud to serve those around us. Visit asda.com/creating change for better. Asda, we're all in this together.
At NatWest, we're putting our money where your business is. We've set aside £5 billion of working capital funding for our customers and have already lent over $3 billion to businesses like yours. So if you bank with NatWest and COVID-19 has affected your business, remember, every one of us is here to support you. Search NatWest Business Coronavirus.
Figures for RBS Group. Security may be required. Over 18s only. Subject to status. Business use only. Typical Danny. Imagine trying to unwind at a spa weekend and you wind up getting your mud pack all over your fave personalised dressing gown. But no worries. Just one wash and my clothes will smell perf with Surf. Surf gives you long-lasting fragrance with natural essential oils. Find your fragrance in Surf's laundry range.
Max is dreaming of riding a giant chameleon whilst fighting a clan of ninjas. But in reality, he's helping fight COVID-19 in his sleep. Like thousands of others, he's joined the DREAM team. By using the DREAM Lab app, they're helping scientists speed up the search for potential treatments.
I'll fight you.
You go, Max. Search Vodafone Dream Lab and join the DREAM team tonight.
Dream Lab app is owned by Vodafone Foundation, an independent charity. Registration number 1089625. Full terms at vodafone.co.uk/dreamlab.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season. Like the Ringer NFL show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more. To help make the most of your time at home, TuneIn is sharing our top activities for social distancing. Tip number 5, cooking something. We all get stuck in a culinary rut with our normal routine. Shake things up in the kitchen by trying an ambitious new recipe or an over-the-top dessert. If cooking really isn't your thing, you can always support your local restaurants by ordering out. For more indoor inspiration, search Listen from Home on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
The NHL is always on the ice with these awesome hockey podcasts on TuneIn. Get your goal with the Spittin' Chicklets podcast.
Brian Yandel, Keith Yandel, thanks for coming on. What's going on?
Nothing much. Glad to be here. You guys got some nice digs here.
We heard you took Southwest 2-stop flight to get out here.
Yeah, well, you know, just...
Carve up the ice with NHL at the rink.
The other day I wrote a story. Artemi Panarin, Semyon Varlamov, Sergei Bobrovsky, they all helped arrange for the purchase of N95 masks to benefit hospitals in their respective markets. This is another one of those positive stories you're seeing.
Or create your own power play with Locked On NHL.
All these teams invested future assets to take a run at the Stanley Cup right now. Like, all of those teams would have a real serious gripe, like trading these multiple first-round picks to make a run at a cup. You're right.
Discover these and more NHL podcasts right here on TuneIn.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell, and stocks continue to trade mixed. We have got the S&P 500 index up 7. That is a gain of 0.3%. The Dow is down 54, lower by 0.2%. And NASDAQ is up 96. That is a gain of 1.1%. Stocks are advancing as New York announced that some parts of the state are ready to reopen this week, easing concern over the impacts of a prolonged lockdown on the economy. S&P 500 index erased earlier losses, the NASDAQ 100 index advancing for a 6th day. S&P up 6, up 0.2, the Dow down 52, down 0.2, NASDAQ up 96, higher by 1%. 10-year yield 0.71%, gold down 0.3%, 16.97 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.2%, 24.68 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no.
Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the Drive to the Close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
All right, it's time for the Drive to the Close. Back with us, we're excited to have her as Kathy Boyle, president and founder of Chapin Hill Advisors, joining us on the phone just up the road from me in Pound Ridge, New York. Kathy, great to have you with us. How are you?
I'm great, Jason. I work from a home office normally, so this isn't very much different.
The world is coming to you in many cases, right?
It is. Zoom is the hot buzzword. Everybody's an expert.
It's funny. My wife also works from home, and she's been especially skeptical of this whole Zoom thing. She's like, we can talk on the phone. Like, there's some of us who do this, all the time. But I do wonder, as I say, you're up the road from me here in Westchester, and I wonder how it's playing out there in Pound Ridge. And you put out a piece of research or a note to your clients, talking about some local restaurants, which I feel like we've been talking a lot about here on this show and here in my little town and in New York City. It's sort of it's a microcosm, right, of what we're going through?
It is, and I think a lot of people are unrealistic. They really are. I mean, we live in a nice, wealthy area, so there's a lot of people that I call the la-las, and life is great. They've got, very big incomes, lots of money in the bank, big houses. So they are a little bit sheltered and isolated from what really goes on. And some of those I've seen on social media saying, I can't wait when it opens back up. We're going to go out. We're going to shop. But I don't think the average person, I think this has been such a terrifying experience for so many people that I think we will turn into a nation of, I don't know if we'll go quite the route of savers, but I think people are really going to focus on the essentials. And restaurants have very skinny margins. So I worked in the restaurant business for years. I worked a lot in the food and beverage industry. They do not have the flexibility. They need to have the dining room is full. And if it's 100 seats, they need 100 seats. They need to have to turn 2 or 3 times in order to make it, depending on the restaurant. So very concerned.
Well, and I was going to say, Kathy, I mean, a lot of your clients, I'm guessing, are small business owners as well.
Yeah, I mean, we focus on 5 to 50 million, so it depends on where you focus in terms of small business, right? But, I have a food and beverage company doing $10 million in revenue. They lost $420,000 last year. He doesn't have any room for error. The wine business in particular is usually 80% what we call off-premise, which is retail stores, and 20% on-premise, which is restaurants. So because we've been drinking like fish across the country, the off-premise has filled the gap. And many of these wine companies are doing close to the same volume, especially if they have liquor. But when we return, we will stop drinking as much, maybe still drink a little bit more than we were, but the restaurants are not going to fill the gap. So I'm advising a lot of my, wine and liquor companies that they really need to prepare for a downturn in revenue and really tighten their belts and look at their bottom line.
And so, Kathy, help us if you can square what you see in the markets with what you see at a local restaurant or what you see when you talk to your clients, because we've got a NASDAQ that's now up for the year. We've got an S&P that, if it closes where it is, will be, in single digits down amid a global pandemic. Help me understand how this is happening.
So it is very confusing, right? And if you look at some of the smart money, look at Warren Buffett as sort of, Oracle of Omaha, right? He's got $137 billion. He sold his entire airline position because they don't see air traffic returning. It's down 90%. They don't see it returning for another 3 years. That's somebody from Boeing said that. And then Leon Cooperman joined in with Buffett and named all these reasons why he's not buying. So a lot of the smart money is not buying. I really think that part of what's happening, the volume's very low, and there's a small number of stocks, again, driving a lot of technology, which granted they're earning money this time as opposed to the dot-com bubble. But right. 10 stocks are accounting for 40% of the return of NASDAQ. So it's a little bit crazy, this disconnect. 77% of people surveyed believe that they're going to be rehired. Yet the University of Chicago, I think it was, just came out with a survey that said only 42% of those people will be rehired, 3 out of 10.
It's a big difference.
So I also think that people got very, very complacent. Every single time, 11 years, Jason, 11 years we got taught every time the market falls, buy it, buy the dip, and you'll be rewarded. And so I honestly think that's guiding behavior. I have people that are normally nervous Nellies. The wife actually said to me, she goes, they have a very conservative portfolio, and they've only lost about a third of what the market lost on the way down, which is our goal. But she said, I'm okay with this. And she goes, can you believe I'm saying that? Because normally she wants to go all cash, So right. I think that it's affected a broad range of people, and that people are thinking last time they took money away from their advisors. They went in 2009, they bought, they looked like heroes. So I think people are thinking they can do that again.
Well, the other thing is, though, Kathy, we have so many questions about what life looks like after the virus. As you said, you don't anticipate all that demand, all this pent-up demand coming back, and some of it cannot come come back. We just talked about the sports world at the top of the show. And I mean, if you think you're going to go back to big sporting events in stadiums and, it's just not going to happen. And so that kind of economic momentum, is not going to be there. And the same thing with restaurants, right? We talked with a doctor who said, yeah, you might be eating outside, but you're not going to necessarily be in the restaurant. It's just not going to happen. So the economic momentum we get on the other side of this is not going to be great.
No, and just think about it. The plan to perhaps close some streets and let restaurants go al fresco so they can at least make up, right? Which then means, think about that the next step. So all the delivery drivers can't get down during those hours. All the Uber cars can't go, taxis. So the economic fall through the domino really carries quite far. And if you look at hospitality, 7.8 million people in that 20 million were related to that industry. The payroll roles that have gone up over the last few years were largely hospitality and retail. Neiman Marcus filing, J. Crew filing, rumors that Macy's might be next. Malls opened up and they were ghost towns. So I really think that we're looking at a continued fallout. I hate uncertainty. I'm a planaholic, and we run our own events. So normally I'd be having an event next week with 150 people, and we don't even know if we can do our July event with 50. Right. I can't do it for 50. It just doesn't work. So I face the same issues that a lot of other people do in terms of catering, event planning, et cetera.
Well, I think it's a really good point. And, these bigger mass gatherings, and if a mass gathering is, defined as something more than 10 or 20 or even 50, it's a whole different ballgame in many ways. All right, good reality check. Feel like our theme is continuing. Carol Masser, Kathy Boyle, we love catching up with her. President, founder of Chapin Hill Advisors, joining us on the phone from lovely Pound Ridge, New York.
Interesting to hear one of her, folks that she works with and saying, who normally says, let's go to cash.
Yeah.
But I'm not that scared. And you're right. She's right that year after year after year after the financial crisis, it made sense to just plow more money into the market for the most part. All right, folks, we've just got about 3.5 minutes left in today's trading session. We're going to count you down to the closing bell. We're just coming off our highs of this session. But again, little change on both the S&P and the Dow. Stick around. We've got the closing bell in just a moment.
Coffee or full breakfast?
Did somebody say just eat?
Me, get delivery like a G. See, hungry dogs gotta eat. I get mines every day, every week. Chicken wings to the crib, I'm sitting in. Burger in the low. Hope they put the pickle in. Wonton on a catamaran. Oodles and noodles, thank you, my man. Justeat.
Somebody say just eat.
Switch on Acorn TV, the brand new streaming service featuring world-class TV from Britain and beyond. Watch exclusive premieres like the colourful crime drama Queens of Mystery.
Once you have eliminated the impossible,
whatever remains, however improbable,
must be the truth.
And fan favourites like Inspector George Gently.
I'm just an old copper doing his job.
If you love drama with a little mystery thrown in, enjoy 30 days free with code ACORN30. Then just $4.99 a month. No adverts, no contract, cancel anytime. Join online today at acorn.tv.
The garden tools that mean you can grow your own. The fire pit that turns tea time into an alfresco dining experience. The paddling pool that turns your back garden into a water park. With a choice of ways to pay, you can make the most of family time. You can say yes when it matters most at very.co.uk. Goods and services provided by Shop Direct Home Shopping Limited. Credit provided. Subject to status by Shop Direct Finance Company Limited. 18+.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £63 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 21st of May to play in the June draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16+. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
Hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. The Dow Jones Industrial Average declines. S&P, NASDAQ hold on to gains. S&P barely. Look like just like that, moving into the negative with red on the screen. Half-point gain right now on the S&P 500 index. The Dow down 109, a drop there of 0.5%. NASDAQ up 71. That is a gain of just about 0.8%. Stocks swinging between gains and losses right into the close. The losses for the Dow accelerated again, down 109, down 0.5. S&P up 0.5 point at the close. NASDAQ up by 0.8%. Stocks rose as New York announced some parts of the state are ready to reopen this week, easing concern over the impacts of a prolonged lockdown on the economy. Jim Paulson is chief investment strategist at Luthold Whedon Capital.
I think the markets are looking ahead to the restart that's starting to happen across the United States at various states overall. And I think they're still benefiting, too, from ongoing massive policy support that we're seeing. Still discussions of more to come, perhaps.
The 10-year, the yield there, 0.71%, down 9/30 seconds. Gold down 0.3%, $16.97 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude, little change, down by 1 cent. AMC Entertainment Holdings, a stock we were talking about right here on Bloomberg Business Week, surged after reports suggested Amazon was thought to have held talks about a potential takeover. Shares surged as much as 56%, though it paired gains when another outlet, the trade publication Deadline, said the companies are not talking. AMC shares up 29.7%. Amazon up today by 1.2%. Avianca Holdings, one of the biggest carriers in Latin America, filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. U.S. airline stocks lower today. UAL down 5.7%. American dropped 0.4%. Delta down 3.1%. Southwest down 4.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Wild thing. Think you move me.
I got a few moves I know you'll like.
Oh, come on, Simone. Shake him. Not stir.
Just move on toward your destination.
I can make things move without touching them.
Shaking all over.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, it is time to take a look at the trade on this Monday. Charlie giving those closing numbers and pretty much just finishing off our highs of the day. But really the big move was in those tech stocks. As for the S&P 500, 157 names in the index, higher today, 347 lower, 1 unchanged. And if I look at the major industry groups, Jason, we're looking at healthcare, information technology, and communication services. Those were your outperformers. Healthcare by a mile, up almost 1.7%. Bottom of the pack included materials, energy, and financials, which were all down. But it was, predominantly a lower day here.
Yeah, it definitely was. And, when you see a split like that, it sort of gives you a little bit more of the sentiment, I feel like. And I go back to something Kathy Boyle said, our Drive to Close guest, recommend you checking that out on our podcast, in part because, first of all, reality check, that's the theme of the day. And one of the things she said was, especially when it comes to the tech stocks, sort of don't be fooled by the fact that you've got a very small number of names, 10 stocks really, who were responsible for 40% of the gain. So there is just this really important thing to understand about the mechanics of the market there, because if you glance at it, you think, well, okay, NASDAQ, tech seems fine and everything's good, just sort of move along. And there is this disconnect that I think we're constantly trying to figure out. Just want to talk about some specific names here. Cardinal Health, that's one of your biggest gainers, driving that healthcare sector that you were talking about, coming out with earnings. COVID-19 boosting their third quarter revenue. So a lot of enthusiasm for, some of these healthcare names that may ultimately benefit from this disease in some form or fashion.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, one name that you've heard probably several times today on Bloomberg is Cody. And KKR giving Cody a lifeline. Talk about a lifeline, $4.3 billion deal. So Cody agreeing to sell the Wella and Clairol brands to buyout firm KKR as part of that $4.3 billion deal. It includes debt, which is pretty typical in the PE world, but giving Cody some badly needed cash because the coronavirus pandemic has really hurt them, right? Anybody who plays into the retail industry, they've really gotten hurt. Cody, by the way, though, that stock was your fourth biggest decliner in the U.S. today. The stock was down about 8%. So still, even with that deal, not enough to really help them out.
Well, and interesting, too, because it essentially, I mean, and this is PE playbook here, as you say. I mean, there's some, it's a convertible preferred share buy. $750 million is part of that. And what's interesting is it essentially is carving out a business. Private equity does this all the time. Cody being able to really focus on mass beauty and Kylie Jenner brand, right? Which is interesting. You go back to the Bloomberg 50 last year. That was one of the big deals of the year, and a big brand, a big influencer.
Right? She became the youngest billionaire.
That's right, youngest self-made billionaire. Yeah, exactly. There you go. All right. One headline to bring you, if we can. U.S. virus cases rising 1.3%, the slowest increase since April 30th. So that's the nationwide case number there.
But as we've been hearing, a lot of the reason you're seeing that decline is because of the declines in New York City, specifically, where we know it's been the epicenter of the COVID-19 outbreak. All right, should we take a look at the volatility index report?
Volatility. The VIX staying below 30, down about 0.6% today, closing at 27.80. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door, it's Dave. Who? Dave.
Hey, Mr. Wilson. Dave Wilson back with us with his stock of the day. What you got?
I've got Quidel, Jason. It's a company that makes products used in diagnostic testing for diseases and illnesses. The company was founded in 1979 and went public in 1981. The ticker is QDEL. Quidel's shares have gained momentum the past few years. They more than doubled in 2017, rose 13% in 2018, and climbed 54% in 2019. And this year, they have more than doubled already. The company's work on coronavirus largely explains the surge in 2020. Quidel developed a COVID-19 antigen test, which looks for substances that produce an immune response in people. That's different from antibodies or blood proteins made to counter the virus. There are antibody tests being developed as well. U.S. regulators approved Quidel's test for emergency use late Friday. And then over the weekend, former Food and Drug Administration Commissioner Scott Gottlieb said the antigen test was, quote, a real game changer. He made the comment in remarks on the CBS News program Face the Nation, heard here on Bloomberg Radio as it happens. And in response, Quidel's shares climbed to another record. They closed with a gain of almost 32%, and that was the biggest for the stock since 1992.
Now, we were just talking about rapid tests versus, and this is for the antibodies, correct?
The antigens. It's different than the antibodies. Similar idea, though. And this test is supposed to give you results in 5 minutes or less. It works on the same system that doctors buy from Quidel for other kinds of testing, for the flu or whatever. So, the mechanism is already in place. It's just a matter of getting the tests out now.
Yeah, and the antigens, I believe I have this right. This is a test for the virus, whether you have the virus, not for the antibodies, which is different. But it goes back to what Dr. Bruce Farber was telling us. You're exactly right, Carol, about the sort of rapid and the point of care tests is what he was talking about, and sort of the differences in what's available and the rapid tests versus the ones that take a little longer that are lab based. So this is all very, very important. So So,
it's a
Dave,
lower
nice
cost,
look at that.
a lower cost test too, so that
Which is important.
potentially, yeah, exactly. As we try to get the numbers up on the testing overall. Good one, Dave. Thank you so much.
Nice one, Dave Wilson. All right, we'll talk to Dave tomorrow for his market insights, chart, and stock. In the meantime, let's get out to San Francisco. Ed Baxter is there with world and national headlines. Hey, Ed.
All right, Jason. Hi. Hey, I just want to recap what you said. U.S. virus cases rising 1.3%, slowest increase since April 30th. Governors of big states, meanwhile, today have begun to release a tally of what the pandemic has done to their economies and are voicing concern that they're getting a deaf ear from help from the federal government. California Governor Gavin Newsom is announcing a coalition of western states to go together to the federal government to ask for help.
We decided it would be best if we go together and advance our needs and put to light and put into writing our hope and expectation of support from the federal government.
So that is California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, and Colorado. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, meanwhile, says it's not for state governments and corporations,
but fund working Americans, police, firefighters, school teachers. They have yet to do that to the extent necessary, and hopefully with the leadership of the House, we'll get that done this week.
Yeah, so he says it'll be a big week in Washington, D.C. So let's tie the two states together here. Meanwhile, the nation's largest states say they're phasing into less centralized control, but regional in trying to reopen. In New York, that is the case with some phased reopenings on Friday. And in California, Governor Newsom emphasized that over 70% of the economy is functioning. Now, in New York City, Mayor de Blasio says that the separation orders will last into June. And there's some concern the federal government about businesses being legal war with local governments. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin says he agrees with Tesla's Elon Musk that if he doesn't get to open up, that he should just leave the state. All right, Jason Carroll, back to you.
All right, Ed Baxter, thank you so much. Nice update. And we should tell you, we are awaiting some comments by the President of the United States. He's going to be talking about testing. We've been talking a lot about testing. Presumably, he's also going to be talking a lot about reopening and a lot about jobs, Carol.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this has been an interesting time, right? Because the President, of course, facing re-election. And so often have we talked about, too, that, an incumbent getting reelected has to do with the economy.
Yep.
And so we know the economy is not in a great way. And I think, voters will look at it and realistically understand kind of what's going on. But nonetheless, it's got to be top front and center, certainly when it comes to the president.
Well, and absolutely. And the best lens to look at an economy in many ways is through the world of employment. So let's get into that with Karen Fitchuk. She is the CEO of Randstad US, joining us on the phone from Chicago. Randstad, of course, a big global staffing firm. Karen, really nice to have you with us. Thanks for taking some time.
Well, thanks for having me.
So tell us what you are seeing, because you guys work across a number of industries. And, one of the things we are hearing is that amid all of these bleak, and I think bleak is the understatement of the day, numbers when it comes to unemployment, we do see some sort of little surges in hiring. Help us understand, maybe a level down, what you're seeing when it comes to companies staffing up.
Yeah, you bet. So, as you mentioned, at Randstad, our role is to match job seekers and employers. And so the world has certainly changed over the last couple of months. We've gone from a talent-scarce marketplace to nearly 15% unemployment. But we are seeing bright spots and good signs. So certainly we're experiencing huge increases in terms of job seekers, coming to our sites and looking for employment, either temporary or permanent. But we're also seeing an increase in job orders, and I would say probably by sector is the biggest indicator of where we see demand. The retail industry has been mixed, but essential operators are actually one of the bright spots, and where we see gains actually in jobs. In I think it was 100,000 in the last report. So employers like an Amazon and a Walmart, they're hiring tens of thousands of people. With the e-commerce trends, we're definitely seeing an uptick in demand for warehouse workers and distribution centers, for example, as well as delivery workers.
How about some of the negative stories, though, like Amazon, concerns about worker safety? How has that colored any of the kind of flow that we're seeing about jobs being posted and jobs being filled?
Yeah, well, there's still definitely the demand from a job seeker standpoint. And actually, Randstad, I mean, given our position as the leader in global HR solutions, I mean, we've been very active about encouraging back to work, but in doing that safely. And so we're actually part of an alliance with two other leading firms, Manpower and Adecco, where it's all about that. It's how do we help reopen these economies and do that in the safest way possible for workers. And so we've gathered global protocols, for example, about, what do you need to put in place before you reopen either a manufacturing plant or a retailer, for example.
All right. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there to head to Washington. Karen Fichuk is CEO of Randstad US. Hopefully, we will be able to spend some more time with her because she was just getting to something I really want to talk about, which is what the new workplace looks like for all workers. Let's head to Washington now and President Trump.
Nation's disposal, public, private, military, economic, scientific, and industrial, all at your disposal. We launched the largest manufacturing ramp-up since the Second World War. There's been nothing like it since. At the center of this industrial and scientific mobilization was the development of our coronavirus testing capabilities. In the span of just a few short months, we've developed a testing capacity unmatched and unrivaled anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. This is a core element of our plan to safely and gradually reopen America. And we're opening and we're starting, and there's enthusiasm like I haven't seen in a long time. Every American should be proud of the amazing array of talent, skill, and enterprise our nation has brought to this challenge. In 3 months, the FDA has authorized more than 92 different tests, and over 9 million have been performed here in the United States. 3 weeks ago, we were conducting roughly 150,000 tests per day. Now we're doing approximately 300,000 tests per day, a 100% increase, and it will go up substantially from that number. This week, the United States will pass 10 million tests conducted, nearly double the number of any other country. We're testing more people per capita than South Korea, the United Kingdom, France, Japan, Sweden, Finland, and many other countries, and in some cases combined. On Friday, the FDA authorized coronavirus antigen test, an alternative testing technology that can be much more readily manufactured. Quidel Corporation, which makes this newly authorized point-of-care test, estimates that it will be able to manufacture 150,000 tests per day, immediately increasing to 300,000 tests per day within just a few weeks. To further expand our nation's testing capabilities, this afternoon I am announcing that my administration we've got this all approved, it's all done, is sending $1 billion to America's states, territories, and tribes. So this has all been approved, we've gotten it done, completed, the money is going out. This major investment will ensure that America continues to conduct more tests than any country on earth by far. I said from the beginning that the federal government would back up the states and help them build their testing capability and capacities, and that's exactly what's happened. This partnership has truly flourished. We have really had a very good relationship with the states and the governors and other representatives within the states, a relationship like I think I can honestly say has not been seen in this country for many, many years. The governors and us are working together very closely, not only on testing, but on ventilators, where we have a capacity that's at this point virtually unlimited. And we're sending ventilators, as you probably heard from other countries. We're sending many, many thousands of ventilators to other countries because they're in tremendous need. And I think building up a lot of goodwill, but much more importantly than that, we're saving a lot of lives. Most states are now doing a great job. My administration located 5,000 machines in 700 labs across all 50 states, and governors have learned how to maximize these testing resources. The federal government is also supporting states with vital supplies, quick approvals of new tests, and one-on-one coaching from the team here at the White House on how to increase capacity and increase it very quickly. In recent weeks, we've held multiple conference calls with every state, as well as with D.C. and Puerto Rico. We jointly developed testing projections and goals for each state for the month of May, altogether totaling 12.9 million tests. Think of that, 12.9 million tests. Today I'm announcing that my administration will provide the collection supplies to help states meet their targets and meet them rapidly. During the month of May, FEMA and HHS will be delivering 12.9 million swabs to states nationwide. We already have them. The delivery will be very quick. We're prepared to provide millions of additional swabs if any state is on a pace to surpass its goal. And their goals are very high. We've set them very high. We've told them to set them very high. My administration will also provide approximately 9 million transport media, which are used to transfer swabs to the lab processing, a complicated process, but we've made it simple. As a result of these actions, every single state will be able to test more people per capita in May alone than South Korea has tested in 4 months since the outbreak began. This major commitment is possible because of the massive mobilization of American industry, including Puritan Medical Products, U.S. Cotton, Abbott Labs, and Thermo Fisher. Some of these incredible companies produced rapidly for us, and their products are here with us this afternoon. These are all different products that were literally just developed. And if you can imagine that, and these are the best machines and the best equipment anywhere in the world, and other countries are calling us, and we're trying to work as much as we can, not only on ventilators, but also with testing. My administration also continues our tireless effort to expand testing in the most underserved communities. Through our partnership with the private sector, leading pharmacies and retailers are now operating over 240 testing sites across the country, and that's in addition to all of the other sites that we have working. 70% of these sites are located in communities with unique vulnerabilities. There will be more than 300 sites by the end of this week, and retailers are making plans to open up hundreds and hundreds more locations within the next 30 days. These additional sites are helping us ensure access to testing in every community. My administration is fighting relentlessly to protect all citizens of every color and creed from this terrible virus, the invisible enemy. In addition to vast amounts of testing supplies, my administration has partnered with the private sector to coordinate the delivery of more than 90 million N95 masks, and these are of the highest quality. Many are made right here in the United States, a capacity we didn't have at all at the beginning. 126 million surgical masks, likewise, many are made here. 9 million face shields, 21 million surgical gowns, 993 million gloves, and 10,690 ventilators. We're building thousands of ventilators in numerous plants all across our country. It's incredible, actually. This global pandemic has inflicted great pain and hardship on our people. It should have never been allowed to happen. It should have been stopped at the source. We mourn for every life the virus has claimed, and we share the grief of all of you who've lost a loved one, and that goes worldwide, too. Many, many countries, 184 countries at least. Thanks to the courage of our citizens and our aggressive strategy, hundreds of thousands of lives have been saved. And we have saved, and if you look at on a per 100,000 basis, we're at the best part of the pack, right on the bottom. Germany and us are leading the world. Germany and the United States are leading the world. Lives saved per 100,000. In every generation, through every challenge and hardship and danger, America has risen to the task. We have met the moment, and we have prevailed. Americans do whatever it takes to find solutions, pioneer breakthroughs, and harness the energies we need to achieve a total victory. Day after day, we're making tremendous strides with the dedication of our doctors and nurses. These are incredible people. These are brave people. These are warriors. With the devotion of our manufacturing workers, food suppliers, and lab technicians, and with the profound patriotism of the American people, we will defeat this horrible enemy. We will revive our economy, and we will transition into greatness. That's a phrase you're going to hear a lot, because that's what's going to happen. We're going into the third quarter, and we're going to do well. In the fourth quarter, we're going to do very good. And next year, I think we're going to have one of the best years we've ever had because there's a tremendous pent-up demand. It's a demand, and I'm feeling it. I've felt things a lot over my life, and I've made a lot of good calls. It's a demand like I don't think I've ever seen. There's a pent-up demand. There's a spirit in this country like few have seen. And I think you can say, and we've helped a lot of the countries a lot, really a lot. There's a tremendous spirit all over the world to beat this terrible, terrible thing. But we're transitioning to greatness, and the greatness is going to be in the fourth quarter, but it's really going to be next year, and it's going to be a year like we've never had before. I really believe that as good as we've done, and we've done great, we had the best economy in the history of the world, not just here, but anywhere in the world. You can talk China, you can talk any other country. We had the best economy anywhere in the world, and we were going for numbers, whether it was unemployment numbers, where we had our best numbers, employment also numbers, a little different, where we had our best numbers, almost 160 million people. All of that, we had the greatest stock market numbers ever. I think we had 142 days where we set records. In a short period of time, 152 days, we set records in the stock market. We rebuilt our military, all built in the United States, all of our equipment built, $1.5 trillion plus. On the southern border, the wall is being built. It's being built rapidly, and now you don't hear the opponents talking too much about the border. They don't like to talk about it because it seemed that we were right on a lot of things. One of the things we were right about, one of the many things, was the border. We have a very powerful border now. We had one of the best weeks in the history of our border between the United States and Mexico, our southern border. We had very few people coming in, very, very few, almost record low numbers. And the wall is being built. It's up to 181 miles already. It's being built rapidly. People don't talk about it anymore because it's very successful. And the area where the wall has built, that is a lot still, but we want to be up to 450 by very short period of time. Early next year, we should be up to 450, and very shortly after that, over 500 miles to be completed. But it's had a tremendous impact. But again, we've had the best numbers. The last thing we want now with this pandemic is for people to come across our southern border. And again, we're doing record numbers, meaning record low numbers. So I just want to thank everybody, and I want to introduce Admiral Guar. If you could, please come up, and Brad, if you would, Brad Smith. And they're going to do a little explaining as to what we've done with regard to testing and how successful it's been. And then we'll take some questions after that. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership and for your high expectations that really made this all come together, and for the uniform support of everyone in the White House and the administration. And thank you, Secretary Azar, for providing his leadership at HHS and allowing both Brad and I the opportunity to work on this project. I think it's clear that America does lead the world in testing. I'll go through some of the charts that show that we lead quantitatively. I will also suggest that we lead in the diversity of tests, which are very important to establish the testing ecosystem to keep America safe. And clearly, as we've said multiple times, no one beats America when it comes to quality. So let's start potentially with the next slide. This may be hard to see, but if you look at the line on top, that's the total numbers of tests done by the United States. No other country in the world comes close to the total numbers. Again, as the president has said, today we will top over 9 million tests. And if you look at per capita, everyone talks about South Korea being the standard. Today, we will have done more than twice the per capita rate of testing that was accomplished in South Korea. No matter how you look at it, America is leading the world in testing. And how did we get there? Let's look at the next slide. Next slide, please. A very important component of how we came to this point was the authorization by the FDA, under the leadership of our secretary, of many different diagnostic tests, of diagnostic devices, and now of serology tests. So you've heard a lot about the different testing, and you see some of the machines up here. Most of the diagnostic tests, all but one, rely on the amplification of the viral RNA, the viral genetic material. And we've talked to you about the diversity of tests. They're very high throughput tests that are done at big reference labs like LabCorp and Quest. But very importantly, there are also tests, and you heard us talk about Cepheid, delivering over 2 million tests, vitally important to rural Americas and to places that do not have very large infrastructure. You've also seen the Abbott test we've talked about. There it is on the left of the president, delivering about 1.4 million tests as a point-of-care test. You get the result within 5 to 15 minutes, and we have deployed over 235,000 of these tests to the state public health laboratories in every state of this country to make sure that that point-of-care testing capability is there to research outbreaks like in nursing homes or in certain industrial capacities, and well over 90,000 to the Indian Health Service so they could test at a point of care in remote locations. The president also talked about a new first-in-class test. It's listed there as an antigen-based test. This is very important, and you've heard Ambassador Birx talk about this multiple times, because antigen testing, although complex, is much less complex than the nucleic acid testing that we've had. Quidel had this authorized by the FDA, and as the president said, we'll soon be making over 300,000 tests per day. Do the math. That's 9 million point-of-care tests that we will have every month in just a few weeks. It will clearly add to, and to a certain degree, transform our landscape. What you don't see up here is the important work the FDA did. I'm a swab guy now. I'm very interested in swabs. In order to make all these tests work, you have to show that a certain swab made of a certain material, performed in a certain way, delivers a highly accurate result. And what you're seeing up here is some of the fruits of that labor. Without the authorizations of, for example, the foam nasal swab, we would be blowing through PPE all across the country because of the need for full PPE just to take a test. That has really been changed by this diverse authorization, and a recent authorization that allows the great manufacturer, U.S. Cotton, to join our foundational industry of Puritan. Next slide. Last week, we did over 1.9 million tests, and that number is growing. And again, as the president said, and Brad will talk about, our states aspire to do well over 12 million tests over the next 4 weeks. You see the graph growing. What you also see, very importantly, is that little orange bar on the bottom is the cumulative number of positives. Our percent positives are going down, and that's what we want to see. In fact, in 31 states as of last night, the positivity rate is less than 10%, which is not a litmus test, but is a good idea that we're doing plenty enough testing that we can enter phase 1 for careful reopening. I also want to take the opportunity to say this doesn't happen by accident. I'm seeing everyone in the audience here, and I'm so pleased that they can be here. People sitting in the front have been working literally 18 to 20 hours a day, every single day of the week, for at least the past 2 months. None of this happens by accident. It happens because their hard work, their sacrifice of their family, all for a common good. And I'm very, very honored to consider you all as my colleagues. And my last slide, as the president said, $11 billion are now being announced to be delivered to the states for the sole support of testing. This will give them the resources to partner, as they have, with the federal government, with the president, the vice president, the task force, with Brad and I, to achieve their testing goals. And we're going to be very specific, and they know it, that there needs to be minimum numbers to be planned to test. They have to have plans for their vulnerable communities, including nursing homes, including those who are disabled, including those who are in prisons or who have working environments that they may have a more likelihood to spread the infection. And combined with that, the Secretary's Office of Minority Health will soon be awarding a large contract to guarantee a national network of state, local, and community-based organizations to assure that those underserved, particularly racial and ethnic minorities, are linked to the services they need, not only testing, but in care as well. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Brad Smith, who's the director of the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, but has really been the chief operating officer to make all of this come together. Brad.
And you are listening to an event at the White House. You've just been listening to Admiral Brett Giroir. He is Assistant Secretary for Health, Department of Health and Human Services, talking in depth about testing. Carol, we heard from the president just a few minutes ago, and now we're going to hear from Brad Smith from the administration, and then the president and his team going to take some questions.
Right, and specifically the president talking about the number of tests that they're doing every day. And I think it's safe to say that if there's any, one effort or, thought that we keep hearing from individuals is that we need to see more testing along with tracing to really get hold of this virus. All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. I do believe we are going back to the press conference that the president is holding right now. Brad Smith, Deputy Administrator and Director of the Center for Medicare and Medicaid, is making some comments. Let's listen in.
Collection supplies. The second part is the machines, and the third part are the lab supplies that the machines need to run. And what we've been working to do is to make sure that each state has all three of those parts to be able to conduct the number of tests. The first part is the specimen collection supply. The commercial market today is providing a large number of these supplies already to states and already to hospitals. But we wanted to ensure that every state had more than what they needed to be able to conduct the number of tests they're aiming in May. So what we've done is we've purchased enough tests to support the state testing goals for May and June. So we will be sending more than 12.9 million swabs and over 10 million media to the states over the course of May, and a similar or greater number over the course of June. In addition, we have several million in reserve, so if states are able to exceed their goal in the third and fourth week of May, we can provide them even more swabs and transport media. And again, this is in addition to what's already available in the commercial market. If you go to the next slide. There are large numbers, has been talked about many times, a large number of testing machines across the country, over 5,000 different machines that can conduct these tests. The key part is making sure that the machines and that the labs have enough supplies to run the machines. There will be, in the month of May, commercially produced over 25 million test kits, which is either the PCR and extraction kits or the cartridges, to be able to support tests in their effort, states in their testing effort. And what we've been working to do with each state is understand their total goal, and each of the manufacturers has been a great partner with us and told us how many tests they're shipping to each lab in each state over the course of May. And what we know is that in the aggregate, the number of test kits the state is getting is greater than their testing goal for the month of May. In addition to what the states have already purchased, there's over 7 million additional tests that remain unpurchased, the majority of those from Thermo Fisher, which is the most common machine in the country. So we feel very confident the states will not only have the specimen collection supplies and the machines, but also the extraction kits and the reagents they need to be able to hit or potentially exceed their testing goals. And if you go to the last slide, the last piece of the puzzle is making sure that Americans have access to these tests. Healthcare providers, hospitals, primary care physicians are already providing these tests to date. And we, for the past 6 or 7 weeks, have been partnered with the retailers who have massively been ramping up their effort. Today, there are over 240 retail sites. We've been working with the retailers to make sure that they're specifically targeting low-income and other vulnerable communities across the country. And we're talking with them about potentially opening more than another 1,000 additional sites over the next month or two. So we hope that we've put together the right pieces of the puzzle, having access points for patients and Americans across the country, having the specimen collection supplies needed to take the test, having the machines, and then also having the lab testing supplies with the machines. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brad. Maybe you'll both stay there. Could be some questions. Okay, please, John, go ahead.
You can't hear me. We had a situation here at the White House on Friday where a member of the Vice President's staff tested positive for coronavirus, which has now caused 3 of the top U.S. officials involved in the coronavirus response to self-isolate. Two-part question. Where did the system break down to allow that to happen? And what would you say to employers who look at the experience here at the White House and say, are we ready for this?
I don't think the system broke down at all. One person tested positive, surprisingly, because the previous day tested negative. And 3 people that were in contact, relative contact, who I believe they've all tested totally negative, but they are going to, for a period of time, self-isolate. So that's not breaking down. It can happen. It's the hidden enemy. Remember that. It's the hidden enemy. So things happen. But the 3 tested negative. The one who tested positive will be fine. It will be absolutely fine. Yeah, John?
And what do you say, Mr. President, to other companies who may look at this and say, I don't know if we're ready for all this?
Well, I think, we have a lot of people in the White House, and we had one. Basically, we had one person. So we had a lot of people that work here. This building is shocking if you looked at the numbers, and it's also tremendous numbers of people coming in. Normally, you wouldn't do that. But because we're running a country, we want to keep our country running. So we have a lot of people coming in and out. Many of those people, most of those people are tested depending on what portion of the Oval Office area they're going in. Everybody coming into the president's office gets tested. And I felt no vulnerability whatsoever, John. But the 2 people, as I said, and 3 people they have been tested, and it's negative, and they'll be probably out of quarantine very quickly. Okay?
President, if I can follow up on that, your staff, your senior staff, as you just referenced, is able to get tested every day. When will it be that Americans across the country will be able to get tested every day as they go back to work?
Very soon. I mean, really very soon. It's an interesting question because normally you would have said that you are not tested and you would have been, knocking us for not getting tested. So if we get tested, it's a problem. And if we don't get tested, it's a problem. But I like the way your question was phrased better this way, because it is a positive. We are tested. We have great capability. You look at all of these machines here. They're incredible machines. They're the best anywhere in the world. No place in the world has this kind of equipment. Other countries are calling sophisticated countries, and they're calling lots of countries. And we're trying to make as much as we can available to them, because there's nothing like what we've been able to do in literally a couple of months. What they've been able to do, the private sector, how they got it done. This is a 5 to 15 minute test. As an example, the Abbott Laboratories test. These tests are highly sophisticated, very quick, very good. This is things that didn't even exist a short while ago. So we do have a great testing capability. At the White House, we're doing it. And I think, generally speaking, we had a call with the governors the other day. Generally speaking, without exception, they were all extremely happy with what's going on with respect to their testing. Okay?
But should people be told to go back to work until they have that assurance that they and their coworkers are able to get a test, which we're still not there?
We're leaving that up to the governors, as you know. And if we see something wrong, we'll call them out and we'll stop it. But we are leaving it up to the governors. Some are being not aggressive enough, in my opinion, and some are being a little bit aggressive, but they're being very careful. And the people of the country, they've learned a lot over the last 2 months. They've learned about social distancing and washing your hands and other things that we've all learned and talked about. They've learned about, I see just about everybody has a face mask on. They've learned about face masks, the good and the bad, by the way. It's not a one-sided thing, believe it or not. But our country has learned. Our country has been incredible. And you see the numbers, they're dropping very substantially. The numbers are dropping around our country very, very substantially. So we leave that, John, up to the governors, and I think they're making a lot of good decisions. We've had, as I said, a great relationship with governors, Democrat and Republican, and I think overall they're making very good decisions. Nobody in this group. All the ones behind the rope. That's interesting. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said in your comments earlier, we have met the moment, we have prevailed. To you, sir, is the mission accomplished, even with 1.4 million?
No, we've prevailed on testing is what I'm referring to. That was with regard to testing. You never prevail when you have 90,000 people, 100,000 people, when you have 80,000 people as of today, when you have the kind of death you're talking about, when you have potentially millions of people throughout the world that are dying, that's not prevailing. What I'm talking about is we have a great testing capacity now. It's getting even better. There's nobody close to us in the world, and we certainly have done a great job on testing. And testing is a very big, important function. By the way, some people consider it more important than others, to be honest with you. But testing certainly is a very important function, and we have prevailed. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. Okay, please. Yeah. Please, go ahead.
There are a variety of reports that Chinese hackers are attempting to steal technology related to vaccine research. Is this something you're concerned about? What can you say?
So what else is new with China? What else is new? Tell me. I'm not happy with China. They should have stopped this at the source. They could have stopped it right at the source. So now you're telling me they're hacking. So I just say this, Steve, what else is new? We're watching it very closely.
If I could follow up, sir, the South China Morning Post, the Beijing newspaper, says that China would like to reopen negotiations on the trade deal to make the terms more favorable to them. Is this something you'd be interested in doing?
No, not at all. Not even a little bit, no. I'm not interested. We signed a deal. I had heard that too. They'd like to reopen the trade talk to make it a better deal for them. China's been taking advantage of the United States for many, many years, for decades, because we had people at this position right here where I'm standing, sitting right in that office, the Oval Office, that allowed that to happen. No, I'm not interested in that. Let's see if they live up to the deal that they signed. Okay? Please, go ahead.
Mr. President, what are your thoughts about a second round of direct payments to Americans that's included in the House Democratic bill?
Well, we're talking about that with a lot of different people. I want to see a payroll tax cut. I want to see various things that we want. I want the workers to be taken care of. But we are talking about that. We're negotiating with the Democrats. We'll see what happens. But as I said, it's a transition, and this is really going to be, in my opinion, we'll see. But I think it's going to be something that's going to be very special. It's a transition to greatness, and greatness is next year, right from the beginning. I think we're going to do fantastically well. I view the third quarter, as I said, as a transition quarter. Could be pretty good, but a transition quarter. Toward the end of the fourth quarter, you're going to see some numbers that are going to be tremendous, I think. And next year, you're going to have potentially the kind of numbers that you saw before, and maybe even better, because there is that pent-up demand that is, a lot of people wanted to do things. They were ready to do things to hold back because of the virus. So I think you're going to have, with that pent-up demand, a phenomenal year next year, unless somebody messes it up by coming along and raising taxes, doubling, tripling, quadrupling your taxes, like a certain party, namely the Democrats, want to do. You'll mess it all up. We had the greatest in the world. I presided. This administration presided over it. It got great for a reason, and we'll do it again. And we'll do it again very quickly and very easily. I see that happening. Yes, ma'am, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Almost everyone, as you noted, in the Rose Garden is wearing a mask today. Why haven't you required everyone at the White House to wear masks before now?
Well, if they're a certain distance from me, or if they're a certain distance from each other, they do. In the case of me, I'm not close to anybody. I'd like to be close to these two gentlemen. They're hardworking, great men, but they just said, frankly, let's keep it this way. So obviously, in my case, I'm very far away from everyone. But if you look at all of those people over there, every one of them, from what I see, these are White House staffers, they're White House representatives, they're White House executives, and everybody has a mask on. We've had just about everybody I've seen today has worn a mask. Yeah.
Were you the one who required that, sir?
Yeah, I did. I required it, yes. Please, go ahead.
Mr. President, you're now promising that everyone who needs a test will be able to get one at some point soon. Can you give us some figures on what you're changing to ramp up testing? When will that be a true statement exactly? And how exactly are you going to accomplish that?
Well, it's a true statement already. We have more testing than any country in the world by far, but I'll let Admiral go into a little bit of the future.
When you look at the testing numbers that we worked with collaboratively with the state leadership, it's not just with the governor, but the state health officers, the state epidemiologists, the public health labs, it's really a combination of testing those who need something for diagnosis, diagnostic testing, tracing, so testing those who have been around the people with a diagnosis. But the largest fraction of that is really moving into surveillance. That is testing those who are asymptomatic. And when you do the numbers, this amount of testing on a state-to-state basis really is in the range that we need to accomplish all of that, certainly within the range that we need. So it really encompasses those three things. The other thing I would say is, particularly as we move into the summer, there are surveillance mechanisms, and I talked about them before, like a weather radar. And just think about that weather radar. The influenza-like illness network, which is at about 75% of healthcare institutions, and syndromic surveillance. So if we see a blip on that weather radar, combined with CDC personnel in every single state and with contact tracers, we really run to the fire, right? And that's when you detect, you trace, and you shut off that outbreak right when it starts.
Mr. President, there does seem to be a double standard here, Mr. President, where members of your own staff can get tests frequently when they need it, but ordinary Americans cannot. So when will the rest of America have the same access that members of your own White House have to testing?
And you know what? If we didn't get the tests, if we did no tests in the White House, you'd be up complaining, why aren't you getting tests for the White House? See, we can't win, because if we didn't get the tests, you'd be up. I understand you very well, better than you understand yourself. And frankly, if we didn't get tests done, you'd be up complaining about the fact that we didn't have the tests done. Now that we're doing so well on tests and so quick and so fast, 5 minutes, etc., and so accurate, you're complaining that we're getting too many tests. So you can't win. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, Mr. President, many Americans want to return to their normal lives, but they're afraid to do so. How can you ensure Americans that it's safe to go to their own workplaces when the most secure workplace in the country, the White House, cannot contain the spread of the coronavirus that's infected some of your own staff?
Well, when you say some, so we have a person, and the person got something happened right after a test was done. 3 other people met that person, came into relative contact, very little contact, and they're self-quarantining. That is not exactly not controlling it. I think we've controlled it very well. We have hundreds and hundreds of people a day pouring into the White House. It's a massive office complex, including the very large building right behind us that you know so well. So I think we're really doing a very good job in watching it, and I think it's very well contained, actually. And part of the reason it is because of all the tests we're able to give. But it was one person, and the other people were only people. They're quarantined. You understand this, Phil. They're quarantined for a specific reason. The reason is they were in the general proximity of the one person. And the one person, I believe, will be fine in a very short period of time.
Why hasn't Vice President Pence followed the CDC guidelines of self-isolation and other people who might have been exposed to this?
I'm going to have to ask that he will give you that information. Whatever he is proceeding and doing, he will give you that information. I'll make sure that they put out a notice. John, go ahead, please.
Mr. President, up until now, it's thought that the most vulnerable people were those above the age of 60 or 70 or 80, and the children were pretty much, I don't want to say immune from this, but weren't affected by it. But all day long in the news today, we have been hearing and seeing this terrible syndrome that some 85 children have now. 3 of them have died. What is the task force talking about in terms of that, and what could be done about it?
We're seeing that all over the world now with young children. Very, very tiny percentage, but it's the swelling and the skin rash, and we're looking at that very closely, John. It's a phenomena that's just been brought to everyone's attention a couple of weeks ago. Admiral, you may have something to say about that.
So thank you for pointing that out. And again, I've said many times I'm a pediatrician and a pediatric ICU doctor. This syndrome, which we call or similar to Kawasaki syndrome, it has been seen in a novel coronavirus before, and it's associated with illnesses. So we have a very strong activation on this. We do know treatments for this, but the CDC is interacting actively with the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit network to create case definitions and to understand how this is going and if there are predispositions. The National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, I spoke to Dr. Gary Gibbons, who directs that, who is advancing many research projects based on that. The ASPR, the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response, has a team out in several areas looking at if there are any special treatments. We know what the basic treatment is, but this is a little bit different than we normally see. So there really is an activation among all the branches within HHS, working with networks at children's hospitals and ICU nets. It is a small percentage, but it is quite frightening. And this reflects the fact that this virus affects the vasculature. We see clotting, we see strokes. And this is a vasculature phenomenon of inflammation we see in children.
Mr. President, with this newly emerging syndrome now among young children, what do you say to parents who would like to get their children back to school but are now looking at this and potentially afraid to do that?
Well, again, it's a tiny percentage, but you're right. So we're looking into it very strongly. And the Admiral, as he said, he's known about this for long before this happened. But it is a very, very small percentage. And people recover from that. The children recover from that. Right?
Yeah, yes, sir. Most do recover from this, but it is a serious and it can be a fatal condition. So we do want to make sure that parents understand that high fevers, red rashes, particularly in your child, you may need to contact your healthcare provider. There are treatments for this. They work very effectively if gotten early, at least for the vast majority of the cases.
We're studying that very closely, and it's been on the radar for weeks, actually, because we've seen this for quite a while. But it's been very rare, but we're looking at it very closely. It's very important to us. I think one of the things we're most proud of is this just came out, deaths per 100,000 people, So deaths per 100,000 people, Germany and the United States are at the lowest rung of that ladder, meaning low is a positive, not a negative. Germany and the United States are the two best in deaths per 100,000 people, which, frankly, to me, that's perhaps the most important number there is. Please go in the back, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I have two questions, one on the Ahmaud Arbery case and one on the coronavirus. The first on the coronavirus, the vice president is said to be in some sort of self-isolating, keeping his distance from people. What do you say to Americans who say, how can you keep me safe? How can you reopen the government if even the vice president is self-isolating? And why hasn't testing gotten up to the point where every American who wants a test can get a test?
Well, the vice president, first of all, has been tested, and he's negative, and it was tested yesterday, tested today, and he's negative. He's in very good shape, and I think that's going to be fine. As far as Americans getting a test, they should all be able to get a test right now. They should be able to get a test. That's the problem with a question like that. We go through a whole announcement saying we're number one in the world by far, by a factor of 2 and even 3 and 4, depending on where you're looking. And I get a question, when will everybody be able to get tested? If somebody wants to be tested right now, they'll be able to be tested. As far as the incident at Georgia, I think it's horrible, and it's certainly being looked at by many people. I'm speaking to people about it. He looked, I saw the picture of him in his tuxedo. It was so beautiful. I mean, he looks like a wonderful young guy. Would have been a wonderful, just a wonderful guy. I think it's a horrible thing. Now, with that being said, as you know, they're studying the case very carefully. They're interviewing